Welcome to episode 11 at the Stevens house. Last time we left off, we showed you the updates on the master bathroom, how amazing that's going to work out. We have never showed you the attic space, and I can't wait to show you what we're doing. So come on, let's go. Space has always been unfinished in this house. So for all the years that it's been standing, no one has ever done anything. So it's always been completely raw. What it did have was some cool features, like this whole staircase was done. It's amazing, the craftsmanship, but it just led to a completely unfinished space. So part of what we had to do, Justin, is we had to figure out, how do we get it to code? The code, I mean, did they even have a code when this house was built? Probably but not. Completely different. So now the code says, when you come upstairs, you have to have a certain head height.
Yes.
So tell me what we did here, because this was all blocked off. So how did we get to the code to allow this whole staircase to even exist if we're gonna finish this unfinished attic?
Yeah, great. So Anne's exactly right that there is a code for accessible space for a walk space and head height, and it's 6'8", and you have to have a certain percentage of that to be able to quantify it for a livable space. So before, if we remember, this ceiling came down that extended from up in the attic, and then there was a wall here. So this staircase was very small up here on this landing. And so what we did was we saw an opportunity with all this dead space above the existing stairs to essentially blow all of this out, frame it in to make this a nice little nook, which gave us our headspace and a little more room on the top of our stairs.
Yeah, and not only that, but we said, okay, how do we utilize the space even more? And what we've talked about is doing like a bookcase or like a window seat, where somebody can just come up in the staircase. It could be their own little nook, and they can take a book and kind of hide away in here. We haven't decided that yet. It's more to come. But we might just utilize it even more, not just headspace, but something, a little nook to hang out in.
Yeah, use the space wisely.
Yeah. I am so excited about this attic space, because this space always existed in this house, but nobody had ever finished it. And we've got almost 1,000 square feet up here.
Yeah, it's so big.
It's huge.
It's huge.
I mean, that just to put it in perspective, 1,000 square feet is like some homes.
Yeah, it's almost bigger than my house.
So can you imagine this all finished?
Yeah.
And it's gonna be amazing, game room, bonus room. Wouldn't some kid love to have this as their own bedroom?
Yes.
And so we inherited this, and it was existing unfinished space, again, just completely raw.
Yeah.
And we had to figure out, how do we make something of this? Yeah, and that's what we're gonna talk about today. This attic is a perfect example of how new construction is so completely different than remodels. When you get an existing space, or inherit, I should say, an existing space that was built over 100 years ago, the construction was completely different. You have something already here, and then you have to retrofit it to fit today's codes. And this is a great example of that. So explain, Justin, what we did here. What is all this stuff on the wall, and why do we have that?
Yeah, and you're exactly right. This white stuff you see behind us here on these diagonal portions of the attic ceiling is spray foam insulation. And what that is it gives us the R value to meet energy code without having to fur down that space to take away from the livable space.
So fur down just means you would have to literally go in and add 2x4s onto all of these existing, if you see these little framing members right here, they'd all have to be added to, so that you can get that puffy insulation that you guys are used to seeing. The fluffy stuff with the paper on it. But when you don't have that, to save time and money, this spray insulation fits in the existing members, and then we can get away with that. So that's one of the things that you have to figure out when you're doing a remodel, how you have to kind of work with what you've got, right? Yep, and not add a bunch of extra costs and time, because all of that would be costly, and it would add extra time.
Yeah, and we lose space too.
And you lose, that's right, you lose space, because one of the other things, one of the genius things that we think we did, is actually this ceiling, when we opened it all up, was actually lower.
Yeah.
By like several inches. If you can see over here, the difference between that joist right there and it came to where, Justin, right about
Yeah, where that
at
beam
the
starts.
end?
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
about a foot lower than what it is right now.
Yeah. So how did you get it higher? What did you do?
So essentially what was in place, we essentially took before we removed it, we added these 2x6 a foot higher than what what it was, and then removed that to give us an elevated space. So rather than a 7'8" ceiling, now it's a 9-foot ceiling.
That's going to make the biggest difference. Have you ever walked into a space and the ceilings are a little bit lower and you feeling a little bit like it's a little cramped? It's really not, maybe not any smaller of a room.
Yeah.
But as soon as you lift the ceilings, it just feels a lot more airy and it actually makes the room feel a lot bigger,
Yeah.
even though the square footage isn't bigger.
Yeah.
It just gives it a completely different feel. So little tweaks like that can
Yeah.
make the biggest difference. And
Yes.
that's what I love about our team is we think through all of these things and what's it going to feel like, what's it going to look like at the end.
Yeah.
And by going the extra step, because a lot of people
Yes.
might just go, oh, it's that way.
Yeah.
Let's just leave it.
Yeah.
But we're saying, how do we maximize?
Yes.
And that was one of the ways.
Yeah, and for
Yeah.
really, really cheap. It
Yep.
was very inexpensive to do that application. It's gonna make all the difference in the room feel, because the room is this large. It's gonna
Yeah.
look even bigger.
Part of a great design and scheduling, or I would say planning a remodel, is saying how do you take advantage of the extra little spaces? And this attic is a perfect example of that because we have these little niches where the window was, and all of that was blocked out.
Yeah.
But we're going to actually put little window seats in there because
Yeah.
it's just extra space
Yeah.
and it could be totally charming. I mean, obviously we could just finish them as they are. But great design says, how do we take advantage and make a room special
Yeah.
by putting special features?
Yes.
So a little window seat there.
Yeah.
And then this spot right here was just, I mean, it just was screamed to be a bookcase.
Yeah.
So it's built in this little framing here. So we're going to
Yeah.
do a bookcase in there. And then another little window seat along this window.
Yeah.
And it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that was a really easy application and fix, because before the framing just came down and blocked it off, we got rid of that framing, framed it out to be an actual dormer space with accent lighting, and then this was just a wall. Removed the wall, put the built-ins in here, and totally changed the feel of the room. Opened it up, added a lot of light, and made it a really usable space.
Yeah, and that's kind of the art of, well, I'll call the art of the project, because sometimes you just have to stand here. And a lot of times, Justin, we'll just stand in a room
Yeah,
and these ideas will come to us
Yeah.
as we're in here.
yes,
I mean, I remember you called me one day and you said, Ann, we have the space at
Yeah.
the end of the stairwell and it's perfect for a bookcase.
yeah,
But, sometimes it's not all planned out at the beginning.
no,
You have to just live it. You have
Yeah.
to be here. You have to do it. And you have to just literally get creative in the moment.
yeah.
And as those ideas come, you execute and away we go.
Yeah,
That's how
yeah.
it happens.
And sometimes we say, she's talking to us. The house is
house
talking.
is talking.
She's talking to us. She's giving us ideas, and we kind of listen, get those ideas, put them in the application, and this is kind of what you see kind of
Yeah.
taking shape.
It's going to be fun. Not only is this room functional because it's going to be amazing, an amazing living space,
Yeah.
but it's also a great space to hide things that are mechanical
Yeah.
that make the whole rest of the house work.
Yes.
And you can kind of tuck them here. What was
Yeah.
one of those, Justin?
So one of them was the heating system, so the HVAC. In previous episodes, we had talked about not disturbing anything below because of the fine architecture and the lath and plaster and the trim that looked immaculate that we didn't want to impact. And so in that, we came up with the solution of utilizing all the space behind these pony walls, as you can see, to run all the HVAC, the unit, the ducting for the attic floor and then the master suite floor.
So behind all this plastic is stuff. Show me
Yeah.
that. So what do we
Yeah.
got? Yep.
So over here, you'll see we had to fur out this wall to create room for code, but you can see in here, inside the space where the original pony wall was, we had to fur this out to consider this 4-ton HVAC unit that's going to help heat and cool the top 2 stories of this home. And so what we did as a solution is we were able to utilize these pony walls in the space to hide all the ducting that's going to serve these 2 floors to maximize the space, use it, and get this out of the way so we didn't have to create some interruption in this large room.
I just can't wait to see this space done.
Oh, it's
I mean,
gonna be
it's
great.
going to be amazing.
Yeah.
The light in here, the
Yeah.
ceiling height, all that stuff, and
Yeah.
the 4-ton unit.
Yeah, but-
it's going to heat this whole house. It's going to be
will,
amazing.
but there's a big problem with that. Is when they were rewiring that, when we put in this 4-ton unit, our electrician said, guys, our panel doesn't have enough capacity for this. So we have to figure out a way to take in consideration the 4-ton unit, all this new lighting, all the outlets, the HVAC unit that's downstairs that's going to service this whole house, and get enough power to it, which we don't currently have right now. And so that's going to be something that we're going to have to solve.
All right. Well, like we said, remodels are full of solving challenges.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
But you're the guy for the job. I know you're going to do it.
We're going to try.
Let's figure it out.
Yeah, we will.
Okay. All right.
Hey.
What a mess.
Oh, there's just a little work.
Hi. I needed my jigsaw for the other place.